Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Gritty Hour. Today I have a very special guest, Dr. Albert Bramante, who is the author of Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. He is a talent agent and a doctor, and welcome to the Gritty Hour, Albert.
Well, thank you, Tom, for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, we're very happy to have you. So, you're a talent agent for first and foremost, correct?
Mhm.
And that's what butters your bread, I'm assuming.
Yes, it does.
And you've been doing that a real long time. Um,
Yes, it's 2004.
and I want to get to your book, but first, I'd like for our audience just tell us how you got into it and what it entails for you. How do you get into that career and what the usual, what it entails?
Sure. Well, a talent agent really works as an employment agent for actors and or performers. Now, I have no actors. You have some talent agents that work with comedians, some that work with variety acts, some that work with authors and literary people. I work primarily with actors for film, TV, theater, and commercials. So at the end of the day, I'm classified as an employment agent. So my day-to-day duties is to find employment for my actors that I represent, which are mainly in New York actors. So that's what I do. Now, of course, I do other duties too. Like, sometimes I'll do a little bit of pep talk, coaching here and there because that's what's really needed sometimes. Because it's an exciting profession, but it's also a very challenging profession too, because it's a overly competitive industry, an overly saturated industry, especially like in New York or LA, which are like the two performance capitals of the world.
Right. So, well, how did you get into that field? What made you interested in it to begin with?
Well, I started off as an actor, which a lot of agents have done. I started off as an actor myself, a performer, and I did that for about 2 years, and I did okay. I mean, I was in a couple of films and some local commercials. But for me, what I really enjoyed was being around actors. Being around these people like really gave me joy.
Hmm.
And so that led me to really come to the conclusion that I love actors. I didn't necessarily want to be an actor anymore. I kind of grew out of that. So, but I wanted to work with actors and I wanted to support actors as much as I could. And I tried to figure, when I was kind of transitioning out of being an actor, I just did some brainstorming. How can I really support actors as much as possible, in a sense, without being one? So yeah, that's when I came to the came to the realization, well, maybe I should represent them
Right.
because I've always been like a connector at heart and connecting people together and bringing people together. That was kind of like one of the things I really enjoy doing. So, as a talent agent, I'm bringing actors onto different projects, and that alone is providing enjoyment in a
Mhm.
sense. So,
And how long have you been doing that?
since 2004,
Long time.
yes.
So I guess the key is to learn the ins and outs of the machinations of how Hollywood or Broadway or things like that work.
Yeah, and it was a big learning curve for me because now a lot of people get into it. There's two pathways. I did the road less traveled, where I just went cold turkey into it. I just went full on, really not knowing what I was doing into. So I learned a lot from trial and error and from failure. What the traditional path that most people go into is they'll intern or be a junior assistant at an already established agency and then work their way up to like be promoted to junior agent and then full on agent and then branch out on their own after a couple of years of being an agent
Right.
at another agency. So I didn't do that. I just decided to go full on into it. Now, if I were to do it all over again, that might have been the road I would have taken, the traditional route. But I was the type of person that I really didn't want to work for anybody else.
Hmm.
I I like that's the advantage for me of being an entrepreneur is I get to kind of like make my own rules. I mean, sure, I have to follow certain parameters of any business, but I can still kind of do things my way.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, that was like the biggest reason, incentive, not or a deterrent not to work with somebody else,
Right. Right.
because there's less control.
Right. So when you take on, I'm not to interrupt you. I'm sorry. When you take on
Sure.
a
Yeah.
when you take on a client,
Mhm.
do they generally are you with them through their whole career, or do they? Is there a lot of changing around in that industry?
There is a lot of changing around. There's only a few that I probably have been with since I started,
Mm,
21 years ago. There's a lot of turnover rate because whether people leave agents or they leave the business,
hmm
uh, their whole host of factors. Well, they move. Like I really don't support actors in other regions. I don't, like in Atlanta or LA or sometimes even international.
Right.
So it's better for them to get an agent local to that area. So some have moved to LA where it was a genuine parting of ways, and or some just want to change. And then I brought on people who've been with other agents for years, and then it came on to my agency.
hmm
Um, Ideally, we want to be with someone long term, and that's what we're putting a lot of work in and putting a lot of our time in because ideally we want someone to stay with us for as long as possible. I mean,
Right.
any agent would do that.
Right. As you're talking, do you mind if I share the website of your agency,
Sure, go
which
right
is
ahead.
which is for the folks listening? I'm just clicking on a page of Bramante Artists, which is the name of your agency, and just going to share that for the people watching us on YouTube.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you can see it on your end, Albert.
It's loading now. Um, Loading.
I got to make sure. I think I told you before we start recording that I was trying to get through this whole podcast without using the usual I don't know what the hell I'm doing part, but just let me know if you can see
There it
that.
is. There it is.
Can you
There
see
it
it
is.
now? So
Yes.
this is BramanteArtist.com.
Hmm.
If you're a new actor or looking to change agents, this would probably be your first step, correct, Al?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the site, there's a form like where you can seek representation,
Right.
and that you'll fill out in detail your links, your any info that we can get, and that I we monitor that at least a couple times a week. We'll check those out.
hmm
The one thing to keep in mind if you and this is not just for submitting for Bramante artists, but if you're an actor submitting to a lot of agencies, do understand that there's a high volume that we get received,
There's a what? Excuse me.
high volume of
Oh,
number
sure.
of submissions.
hmm
So one thing that I say is we really only have time to respond to the actors that we're interested in meeting at the moment.
hmm So if you happen to,
And
yeah, go ahead.
so if there's not enough space time at the moment, we'll keep your info on file, and then you can always feel free to either resubmit or at least check in with us every couple of months. Like this is what I've been doing. This is the stuff I'm doing on my own.
hmm
So and what you're scrolling down now is a list of some of the contracts and bookings we've done in the past.
Right.
Some of the shows, some of the productions that we worked on in the past. So and there's a variety of reasons why we might pass or bring on an actor for an interview. The one thing is we do like working with new actors, but not entirely newish to the industry. So we wanted you to have some experience already, um, whether that's doing some independent film, some community theater, but doing something already that you already have a resume
Right.
of work. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we want the goal here is because it's such a heavily competitive industry, we want to make sure that your materials and your portfolio, your headshots, your your reels, and everything that comes together is competitive enough
Right.
that we can hold weight with the other agents. We're not the only agent working in the business. So, and also another thing that important thing for actors to know, we don't want to have too much competition within our agency, which means if you're a specific type, I'm not going to bring, and I already have a couple of of that specific type on my roster. I'm not going to be bringing you on at the moment because I don't want to be. It's not wouldn't be fair to you, and it wouldn't be fair to the those other actors on my roster.
Hmm.
So there may be times where it just may not be right at the moment because I have like a couple of already of your type. So it wouldn't be fair,
Hmm.
and I'm all about integrity and ethics. So what I often say is like keep submitting, keep in touch because in a year from now maybe that person becomes unavailable or leaves the agency, and then we have an opportunity to or a spot to bring you on.
Right. It's like I guess it when you listen to actors say specifically talk about
Hmm.
how did they get from from point A to point B, how did they get more well known, and a lot of it is happenstance. It just
Hmm.
and I guess that's what you're alluding to. You may have NBC reach out to you for a TV show as an example. We need to fill a 40-year-old female,
Hmm.
and you happen to have one or two clients in your roster that could fill that role, and you send them on the audition. Is that mechanically how it works?
Yeah, I mean, what we do typically is there's a couple of sites that we use on a daily basis, which is where we get the character briefs or breakdowns of what shows are running, what NBC shows are running, what CBS shows are running, what Broadway and with each show we'll get like a character description of the roles that we're trying to fill, that
Hmm.
they're trying to fill, and a lot of times it's very specific. It could be a 45-year-old female executive business type.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be looking obviously at that time for my clients that meet that age range and that can play a business executive.
Hmm. That makes sense.
So and then I'm going to put those best foot forward. So and sometimes they're very specific on what ethnicity they want, what hair color they want, or the height of the character.
Hmm.
So and that is really important for us to use a screening. Okay, which clients really ideally meet this criterion, or if they need somebody bilingual in Russian or Spanish, for a character.
Right.
That's something we have to be very specific to do.
I guess from an agency point of view, your point of view, you have to make sure your roster has a wide variety of
Yes,
talent. Yeah.
and one of the things I've always prided myself on as an agent is bringing on people from all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, types onto the roster. Be very inclusive as as all possible as
Sure.
we can because there's so many different types of roles now available.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a question that's been sort of a running current through the last four or five of my episode podcasts.
Sure. Hmm.
Uh, AI, artificial intelligence. Do you have
Yes.
any comment about how you think that's going to affect your aspect of your industry?
The one thing that the one thing I'm relatively optimistic. I mean, I know some people are afraid of, the anxiety around AI is going to take our jobs away.
Hmm.
The one thing I don't see AI right now doing is creativity. It's great at automation. It's great at, you know, doing some business admin tasks. But as far as creativity is concerned, I don't think it's anywhere near there yet.
Right.
I mean, I say yet because who knows? I mean, AI is developing at such a fast rate. The only time I can see a problem, the only problem time I can see that really being a problem
Hmm.
is um, the fact that in the voiceover world.
Mm.
That I could see that being a problem. In the voiceover world, because a lot of AI software is now cloning voices.
Mm,
So you can clone a voice in 2 minutes. So that's the thing I'm concerned about a little bit.
right.
It's like the ethics behind it. Um, but I don't. What I can see it's great at doing admin work, or even like automating some things that business owners, entrepreneurs, and creatives that may may have taken them hours to do can now take minutes, or even fraction of the time.
Mm,
So I use it a lot for content creation or for, helping me answer, complex things.
right.
Um, but I use it as a brainstorming tool. I don't, the one thing I would caution people with AI is to not use it entirely as is. So you could put in a piece of content, get an output. The one thing I would say is never to take that output as straight on. In
Mm,
other words, like don't just cut and paste what ChatGPT or Claude gives you
right.
because it can be very robotic like and often inaccurate.
Mm,
Sometimes it
right.
it it and we've seen cases like that where people got into trouble because they you know put stuff in that didn't exist. Like there was a case I'm sure you may have heard about a year and a half ago in New York how a couple of lawyers got in trouble because they were preparing a brief for a case and putting case law and they used ChatGPT
Oh,
and they put in cases that didn't exist. Now that
mm,
there's nothing wrong with using it in the plan or using it to brainstorm if you're writing something, but I felt like those lawyers should have did due diligence by researching, taking the extra steps to are these cases real?
yeah. They probably laid off their paralegals already in favor of GPT. That's probably what put them in the spot they were in.
Yeah, yeah, and I was like, okay, well, this sounds great, but did this really say it? So even if I'm putting something and it puts out like so and so said this quote, I'm gonna verify that so and so really did say that quote
Right. Right.
because it wouldn't be ethical or really advisable if I'm putting out there that Einstein said this. Well, where's the evidence that Einstein said that,
Right. Right.
or is that just completely made up?
Yeah, that's
So,
that's been sort of a problem since the internet came into prominence, right?
oh, of course, because anybody can make stuff up, and it's hard to verify because a lot of times they didn't keep direct records back then, so
Right. I
you're only
remember
going by hearsay.
I remember that
And
when the internet was just starting to promulgate throughout society. I remember the quote, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet," and they attributed it to Abraham Lincoln, as a joke.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So you see it being more prominent with AI now, going through the same.
oh, absolutely, and
Yeah,
they call that hallucination. So, and even the programmers behind these AI will advise you not to always double check what information it gives you
right,
because it's important. Sometimes it can be great, and sometimes I'm like, I really feel it's better to come out from a human being. And
right,
the one thing that AI can do, it's great at predicting language and but it's not good at picking up your voice or your style. So I can tell you this because I've been putting out content way before ChatGPT, and I can tell you if I just use ChatGPT to put out content, people would automatically know that that's not me. Yeah, my name may be on it, but they'll be like, "This doesn't sound like Albert."
right, right, right. And do you see that one day they'll well, I don't want to say Chat GPT, but AI in general will be writing sitcoms
I don't I don't
or
discount it. I don't think right now because a lot of times it really requires a deep understanding of human psychology to
mhm,
kind of really be able to come up with timing and jokes. Because I've played around with like ChatGPT and be like, well, tell me some jokes, and The one thing it doesn't have is humor,
Mm-hmm.
because the jokes that it popped back out were lame. And my when my nephews were 5, they had better jokes than that
Yeah, yeah,
than
yeah,
what ChatGPT gave me.
yeah.
So I can't see that happening, or at least a good quality sitcom.
Or at least not in the short term. As it
Yeah, not in the short
evolves.
term. And even in the long term, I don't know if it's going to really write a good sitcom rather than the canned
Yeah,
version of. Because the only way it's going to be able to write a sitcom is by using other scripts of sitcoms to kind of make
yeah.
that prediction. It's not going to have that creative element of someone's life stories.
At the root of it, AI is just a regurgitator, right? Or a amalgamator of information that it knows.
Yeah, I mean it's good to amplify what you're saying, but it's not going to replace humans, and that's
Hmm.
why I'm not. When people say that they're worried about like AI taking over, I'm not.
Right,
At least not now. And
right,
maybe I may have a different opinion in 5 or 10 years, but
right.
not now. Not
A-
now.
Good point. And you did mention human psychology. You are a doctor of psychology, correct?
Yes.
And this might be self-explanatory, but I wanted to ask you about your book, Rise Above the Script: Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. Uh, I can almost answer my own question as to how you can you see that book?
Yes.
I can almost answer my own question as to what prompted you to write this book, but maybe just give our audience uh, a bird's eye view of what got you into writing the book.
Well, one thing I've noticed, since I started this, there were a lot of actors that were self-sabotaging. And really what I mean by that is like shooting themselves in the foot, taking themselves out of the running, or just really being their own worst enemy. And so this is part of my doctoral dissertation, was Rise of the Script, because my doctoral dissertation I looked at self-defeating behavior in performing artists, and because it was a problem that I kept running up against, especially when I was first starting out, and figure out what exactly is going on here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So
Yeah.
so that was how that started, and it was kind of bare necessity, and I wanted to put a book together because it was a topic that wasn't really written about, but talked a little bit about, like the especially in the self-sabotaging part
Hmm.
of actors. So that's kind of like what my main motivation for putting that book out.
Hmm. How's it doing, the book?
It's gone okay.
Yeah.
I mean it's self-published, so there of course there's advantages and disadvantages of self-publishing.
Hmm.
The advantage is, of course, I have complete control over everything. The downside is I have to build my audience up. I don't have a pre-built audience if I want to, a strict publisher who can get me people. But I've gotten some decent reviews.
I
So
just going to comment on that. It seemed like all the reviews I read earlier today seemed all to be positive.
yeah, so
Hmm.
I'm really happy about that. Yeah, I'm really happy that I got positive reviews.
Hmm. Um, so would this be like stage fright would be one of the?
Absolutely. Well, stage fright is definitely something that hold us back, and what I kind of I challenged the whole idea of stage fright, because if you look at stage fright, what the you'll often hear signs of what people say: butterflies in the stomach,
Hmm.
heart beating fast, skin sometimes getting warmer. We can reframe that as excitement,
Hmm.
and therefore, when you start to experience it, instead of saying "oh, I'm stage fright," we can reframe that saying "I'm being excited right now."
Hmm.
I'm excited to do this. And so it's a way to kind of reframe that a little bit and to take away and to kind of take away the stigma of stage fright. But if we reframe that as excitement.
Is there a technique to do that? I actually had an actor on a couple of episodes ago who started out on Broadway, went into
Hmm.
movies, but he was telling me he would get stage fright every show. I can't remember the name of the producers he was on Broadway,
Hmm.
and with Matthew Broderick, and he was saying every show before the show started, he got stage fright. So, is there a technique that you amplify in the book to redirect it as excitement?
Well, just number one is just talking your way through it. This is excitement, um, and there's nothing wrong because a lot of times when we start experiencing those signs of fear, our brain automatically starts to code and say something's wrong, and
Mm,
that amplifies it because it's being repeated in the nervous system and something is wrong. So if we can change it from the beginning, saying, this is something right. Because the one thing is you'll never have, it's almost impossible to have any performance where there's nothing, no feeling. Um, Even Tony Robbins, for instance, was saying that at times he'll get a little tension before a show, before a performance, or before going out on the stage. And people who work closely with him say that what they'll do is they'll see him like working on a rebounder or like a trampoline for 15 minutes before he goes on.
hmm
The way that's because he's working through his nerves, building up the excitement, building up his energy level.
Right.
And so by doing that, by like transferring his excitement, instead of it working against you, you let it work for you.
I understand. So, can stage fright be clinically called anxiety, or is it a different horse?
It can be anxiety, but usually, if we're going to call somebody clinically anxiety, it would be they'd be experiencing that feeling in different contexts and different situations,
hmm
not just going on stage, but anything that can come up.
Right. I
Then that would
understand.
be the person would be classified as maybe having anxiety disorder, not just a stage fright. That alone does not qualify as somebody's having anxiety.
Right. So, in this book, there are tips and techniques to,
Hmm.
I would imagine, not only actors, but any kind of public performer, whether you're giving a
Sure.
speech or you're playing in a band or
Or
giving
sales, yeah. I mean,
doing a corporate presentation, whatever. Could
absolutely.
could use the tips that you have in here.
Yes.
Yeah. Is some of the obviously you're a doctor of philosophy, psychology, but do you put your life experience
A
tips
little
and
bit,
tricks?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever I can, I will definitely add in there.
Back when you were an actor, did you have such anxiety or stage
A
fright?
little bit, a little bit. And a lot. It's interesting because I wish I had 1/10 of the knowledge I have now back then.
hmm
But I didn't. But I was learning too.
Right.
So
Well, you were probably just a kid starting out at the time, right?
yeah, and even like when I give presentations, I get a little anxiety right beforehand,
hmm
or even when I'm about to teach a class, I'll get sometimes a little bit of the butterflies or the elevated heart rate beforehand.
Right. So you redirect it as just excitement
Excitement,
and
nothing. I'm not in danger. Absolutely,
excitement
absolutely.
and just a good anticipation of what you're about to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So what other tips? It's because it's confronting self doubt. Now I'd like to explore that a little bit. Does that?
Well,
Yeah.
the one thing that I often big time talk about with self doubt is really take stock or take inventory of all your accomplishments. Because a lot of people have a tendency to distort or delete their accomplishments. So very often, if someone's experiencing like self doubt, or imposter syndrome, it's just sort of like take stock of everything you've done. What have you accomplished already,
hmm
and then look at that and focus on that.
Right.
Focus on what you have accomplished already, and then because most of the time people are a little shocked to see how much they've accomplished, especially when they're in the moments of having self doubt. So the
hmm
biggest thing is to reflect on all your accomplishments and then tie that into the main reason why you got started. Why did you become an actor or a speaker or a coach or whatever it is you do? What was the main reason for doing that? And then connect that to again the list of achievements you already have.
Yeah. You're your own worst critic is essentially what that.
100%,
Yeah.
yes.
So among some of the talent you have dealt with over the years, and that's quite a long career you have had so far.
Hmm.
Um, why is there self-sabotage among those actors, essentially?
Well, there's a lot of self-doubt happening.
Mm,
It's there. It's an industry where there's a lot of no's before there are yeses, and it's an oversaturated market. So no matter how talented an actor is, they're gonna be told no more than they're gonna be told yes,
mm,
and that can add up over time because every time an actor goes on an audition, they're kind of like making themselves vulnerable, putting their heart and soul out there, and then getting told no
mm-hmm.
over and over again.
Right.
So, and then of course they hear from their family and friends who, if they're not in the industry or the business, they don't know how to support. And so they'll often hear things like, "Well, you gave this acting thing a try. Well, now it's time to get a real job."
Mm, mm.
And they'll hear that a lot of times, and even with good intentions from family and friends, but that's not obviously the right advice.
Right. Especially in an industry like yours, where for every job you get, you probably get turned down for 150 other ones, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a generous number too.
Mm,
That's a low number.
right.
I've had people tell me that they've auditioned for 200 or 300 times before they had like a big role.
Right. And sometimes having to come back and audition for the same role, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
a lot of times, especially if it's a larger role, you may have to go back a couple of rounds
Mm,
because they'll narrow it down and it gets closer and closer.
right, right, right. So you seem to be your agency seems to be one of the go-tos for a lot of the uh, production companies.
Hmm.
Is that where the bulk of your talent gets placed, or do you deal with stage as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have clients who work in musicals, and sometimes in plays. Um, right now I have a client who's on off Broadway at the Pell Theater in New York with the musical Joy.
Hmm.
I have another client who's about to go on tour for the Addams Family. Another one's about to go on tour for Clue, the musical.
Hmm.
So I do work with stage as well.
Hmm. So, about the bulk of your talent ends up in film of some
Yeah,
sort or another.
film, and theater and TV. I would say that's the bulk of it.
Hmm. So, I'm thinking now that you described this more in depth, this book, I would think anybody would get something out of this.
Absolutely, any profession would. Yes.
Yeah, anybody that's ever dealt with any kind of anxiety,
Hmm.
or self-doubt, which probably most
Right.
of us have at one point or another.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
very good.
Most people don't really, the one thing about self-doubt, but even the high achieving people, the leaders, the thought leaders, the high achievers often deal with self-doubt on a regular basis. Even A-listers too. I've heard so many times where A-listers will doubt be their own worst critic.
Yeah, it's human nature, I suppose, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what you're fighting, right? Is that the
Hmm.
techniques to like workarounds for what's in your,
Yes.
yeah, what's hardwired into our nature, right?
Hmm.
I have to ask you, Albert, who did the audio part of this book?
I use something called Narrators Hub, which is an audiobook production company,
Uh-huh.
and so I hired a narrator to do that out of that company.
Okay. And I have to check it out because it says continue for free. It's too much of a temptation to not listen a little bit. But I am going to buy the paperback though.
Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, thank you, and I appreciate you coming on. So you just give us our listeners and viewers a little idea of what's in the future for Bramante artists.
Well, we're constantly working to get our talent out there and be part of a lot of the new stuff. We do also work with a few creators that are actors too. So hopefully, those some of the original content that they produce will get picked up, and we can contribute to the landscape. And then for me, I'm working on a couple of follow-up books from that,
Nice.
and um, yeah, but definitely stay in touch, with me. And I post a lot of articles too, thought articles, so on different topics.
I meant to ask you when I was sharing your artist page, your agency page, excuse me. Um, those production companies or networks, whatever you want to call them, they've had success with people you've presented to them. Does
Yeah,
that make them tend to go back to you more often?
yeah. I mean, a lot of it is repeat, and everyone that we featured on there we've at least had somebody get hired for one of their productions. So
Right,
I mean, that's why they're on the site there.
right, and
And
that's why they're on your roster.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you work hard for your artists. That's for sure.
Yeah, we do, and that's what we're doing initially in the beginning is working for free because we only get paid when our actors get paid. So
I see. Is that how most agencies work, or?
the legitimate ones, I will say.
Yeah.
What I often tell actors that if anybody's listening that's going into acting, the one type of agency you shouldn't seek out or is anybody who asks you for money up front.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way a legitimate agent makes money is through commission.
Hmm. Which is, as a pedestrian, not in the industry, that seems to be the way it should be.
Of course,
Right.
it's the only way it should be. Yeah.
Right. And the classic 8x10 glossy stuff, is that still in vogue?
Um. Yes,
Headshots and
and
stuff.
everything's electronic now.
Mm-hmm.
But the one big change that I've seen, even in the 8x10s, is from black and white to color. Nobody uses black and white anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When I was an actor myself, we used black and white, the 8x10s,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like the standard. Now everything is color, and now of course everything's online.
I understand. What happens when they want to do a remake of Young Frankenstein?
Mhm. It's going to be in color. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. No, it's been a great pleasure. Very interesting fella, Albert.
Well, thank you, Tom, for having me.
It was a great pleasure. I love learning about this stuff. It's a very interesting industry. I've had various people in various aspects of that industry over the years on the podcast. So you're the first agent I've had on. So it was great to hear your perspective on things, especially AI, which I seem to be subconsciously, over involved with for some reason.
Hmm.
So, but I do appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck with your book. Again, the name of the book is Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. And if I could add, just about anyone who's ever had self-doubt should check out this book. It's available on Amazon right now. So thanks again, Albert. I appreciate you coming
Thank you for
on,
having me.
and I hope to see you sometime down the road, okay?
Of course. That's all right. Thank you.
All right, have a great night, sir.